trial process. And as the court may recall, Defendant Potter waived her right to have a jury decide those. And so therefore it became the court's function to make findings on those based on the evidence at trial. So we asked the court to make those findings. I know it has been reported that we were seeking a longer sentence, but that's not what our previous filing was doing. Our previous filing, I think, very clearly asked the court to make those findings because we had to ask at that time for those findings to be made. We are not in that filing make any recommendation about sentencing. As we stand here today to sentence, as the court pointed out on manslaughter 1, we are not asking the court to rely on those findings for a departure from the sentence. The court, of course, is free to consider that with the trial evidence and deciding on a sentence as well within the guidelines range. Your Honor, I want to also, on the behalf of the state, thank the jurors for doing their job under very difficult circumstances. It's obvious that they carefully considered all of the evidence and took their time, and as a group, carefully deliberated. We know it was a difficult task and it was emotionally demanding of them, as well as sacrificing their personal time in doing their civic duty. And so we thank them for it. We also thank the Wright family and China Whitaker on behalf of Daunte Jr. They have been here throughout this entire trial on what has been just a terrible emotional roller coaster ride for them. And I know that they are going to address the court. I will not take up a lot of the court's time trying to say things that they can say better than me. His name is Daunte Wright. We have to say his name. He was not just the driver. He was a living human being, a life. The highest principle of law enforcement is the sanctity of life, and his life counted. His life mattered. And that life was taken. And the law recognizes the severity of the loss of life when setting criminal penalties. The legislature decides what the sentencing policy is for the state for certain crimes, and the presumptive sentence in this case reflects the loss of life. As prosecutors, we represent the interests of victims, and we represent the interests of the community. And so the presumptive sentence, Your Honor, is something we consider appropriate given the loss of life. The jury found the defendant guilty of this crime. This crime reflects a level of culpability that we agree is not an intentional, it wasn't an intent to kill Mr. Wright, but it was culpably negligent. It represents a higher state of culpability. For those reasons, we believe the sentence is appropriate, the presumptive sentence. As prosecutors, we are ministers of justice. We also represent the community's interests. And there are many interests that the criminal justice system tries to take into account. Retribution is one of them. Deterrence. But the community also has an interest in rehabilitation, reformation, restoration. The defense is asking for a dispositional departure from the presumptive sentence. We are not agreeing to that, Your Honor, but we have to recognize this is a unique case. This is a very difficult case. A departure like that must be reserved for only the most rare, for rare cases and for the most compelling reasons. And so what is unique and compelling about this case that will allow the court to depart from what the legislature says is the appropriate sentence? We don't doubt that Ms. Potter has remorse. But this is, Your Honor, I'm just going to speak quite candidly, right? This is a courtroom full of pain and anger. How do we fix that? What can we do? This is a divided community. What can be done to help restore some of the faith and the trust between law enforcement and the community, in particular in this case? What can be done to help the Wright family through their pain and their loss? What can be done even to help Ms. Potter deal with the consequences of what she has done? I submit to the court that her remorse alone is not enough. We should expect defendants to have remorse. We should expect defendants to have remorse for more than what has happened to them. We should expect defendants to have remorse in the sense of a feeling of wrongfulness for the betterment of a lot of people. As we point out in our memo, it's everything from talking to officers about the dangers of weapons confusion. This is unfortunately a too common of occurrence. She can talk to manufacturers about this. She can talk to the Wright family, should they want. A key component, as we know, of restorative justice is this ability to kind of take the lawyers out of everything and let victim and defendant try to heal. It's not right for every case. It's right for some cases. And it has to be right for the victims. So that's really up to them, but it's a possibility. And to have an acknowledgement of the wrongfulness of the conduct, an acknowledgement that police officers are subject to the law like everybody else, and that when they make terrible errors, they can be held responsible as well. The jury found that Ms. Potter is responsible. But accepting that, acknowledging that, is a key to moving forward, is a key to restoring some sense of healing and hope in the community at large and for the Wright family as well. So, Your Honor, it's our position that until those things are proved to you, to your satisfaction, that this is the rare case that warrants a departure from the guidelines. You should impose the presumptive sentence under the guidelines. It is appropriate for what has happened. But that lies with Ms. Potter. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I understand that members of the Daunte Wright family would like to make some comments, and I think Katie Wright would like to be heard first. Would you please come forward, Ms. Wright?
Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me this time to talk.
Welcome. Would you please state your full name and could you spell it for the record?
My name is Katie Ann Wright, KATIEANNWRIGHT. Daunte Wright is my son, my baby boy, and I say is and not was because he will always be my son, and I'm proud to say that. I have had many, many sleepless nights and days contemplating how and what I was going to say today. I have to be the voice for myself, my family, my community. But most of all, I have to be the voice of my son, Daunte. Your Honor, I hope the defendant is listening as I speak loud and clear today. And yes, I refer to her as defendant because I will not give her the respect of calling her by her name. She referred to Daunte over and over again as the driver, as if killing him wasn't enough to dehumanize him. She never once said his name. And for that, I'll never be able to forgive you. And I'll never be able to forgive you for what you've stolen from us. I hope you're listening and don't mistake any of my words because we can't afford the defendant to make any more mistakes. His name is Daunte Demetrius Wright. Let me tell you what you've stolen from us. Daunte was born October 27th, 2000 at 9:25 a.m., one of the happiest days of our lives. My husband named him after Daunte Culpepper because he loved the Vikings and knew our son was a star from the moment we looked into his eyes. He played way too much and he joked a lot. Even when he'd get on my nerves, I couldn't stay mad at him because Dante's goofy laugh. Daunte loved hard, loved his family, friends, and his son. Dante's smile was genuine and big, just like his dreams. You took this. You took his future, what he could have been, and it was so many things. April 11th was the worst day of my life. A police officer who was supposed to serve and protect took so much away from us. She took our baby boy with a single gunshot through his heart. She shattered mine. My life and my world will never, ever be the same. And I often replay that phone call in my head over and over again. And I blame myself because I should have told him I shouldn't have told him it was going to be all right. I told him he was going to be okay. And just to find out a few minutes later, he wasn't. A police officer that took an oath to serve and protect for 26 years. But not on this day. On this day, she did not protect. She failed Daunte, our family, and our community. She did not render aid to Daunte, Elena, or the elderly couple that was in the vehicle. His car was held at gunpoint for over 5 minutes while my son bled out in the driver's seat. The last memories of Dante's life is now watching him being shot over and over again. Seeing his lifeless body pulled and dragged onto a grassy spot. where they left him on the ground for hours. As people all over the world watched, I had to cry from behind a caution tape. I couldn't go to be with him. My motherly instincts was to go, to hold him, to caress him, kiss him. And even in my mind in that moment, I wanted to save him. Another opportunity that was stolen from me. She left our world with so much darkness and heartache. The best way that I can explain it is what I feel every day since Daunte was killed, is comparing it to a sinking feeling that a mother gets when she turns around and realizes her kid is missing in a grocery store and you can't see him, feel him, touch him, know if he's scared, safe, okay. She took a grandson, brother, uncle, cousin, friend. She took a son from his father, a son from his mother, but most of all, she took a father from his son. Daunte was only 20 years old. He had so much life ahead of him. The defendant left us with memories and a picture. I have to grieve in public. The whole world sees my crying face, and it's plastered all over. My shattered heart has been on display for almost a year now, and I have to live in this nightmare, watching my son shot and killed over and over again. The defendant will be here to watch her sons marry, have children, buy a house, start a family. For me, every day, I could only hope to wake up and see Daunte walk through the door and watch him play with his son, mess with his sisters, laugh with his brothers. A hope that's never gonna come true. Your Honor, I'm asking you to hold the defendant to the highest accountability. She was a person of authority who betrayed her badge. Not only when she shot Daunte, but when she rolled around on the ground crying for herself. I'm going to prison. I shot a boy. Call Chuck, her union rep. When she should have fact said, please go save him. How is he doing? Is he okay? Please help him. She didn't even try, Your Honor. She didn't try to save him. You should have done better. When it comes to trial, I was there every single day. My heart wanted to see remorse, sadness in her eyes. I wanted to see her mouth the words, I'm sorry. But she sat there with such entitlement and privilege. She never once looked at us passing through the hallways every day. As she sat on the stand, not at all, no eye contact, nothing. Then she finally said, I'm sorry it happened. Those are her exact words. That was coming after a break, Your Honor, that the defendant had time to be coached on how to gain some sort of sympathy from the jury, but not me. I can't give the defendant sympathy. Your Honor, I'm stuck with 3 questions I ask myself. How do you show remorse when you're smiling in your mugshot after being sentenced to manslaughter, after taking my son's life? How do you say you're sorry with no tears? How much time is my son's life worth? I know here today the defendant and her attorney, they're going to tell the court how sorry she is. Her family may even give victim impact statements, and afterwards, both the defendant and her family will be able to talk, hear each other's voices, hug, kiss, say I love you as her husband did on verdict day. Eventually, her sentence will be fulfilled, and she will have her whole family to be with her at dinners and holidays. Again, another thing that has been stolen from me. Please keep in mind the impact this has caused her family and herself is just a small passing. It's just a small storm that's going to pass. compared to our life sentence without Daunte. Daunte Demetrius Wright, I will continue to fight in your name until driving while black is no longer a death sentence. I'm proud to be your mom, and I love you, Daunte. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. And Mr. Aubrey Wright, please come forward. And state your full name and spell it, please.
My name is Aubrey Wright. You said spell it?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Arbuey. Last name is Wright. Wright. I'm kind of nervous though, but I'm Aubrey Wright, Daunte's father. I want to start by telling you what Daunte meant to me. Daunte meant the world to me. He was my son, made out of the unconditional love that me and his mother have for each other. Daunte was every man's dream. My first child with my wife, and he was a boy. I was so proud to be his father. He was handsome. He was my son. He was my prince. Daunte was my reason. He was my reason to do better. He was my reason to change in life. A father's love is so powerful and deep. It's hard for me to put it into words. But I need you to hear me when I say I love my son with all my heart. I've been there for his first steps, his first words, first day of school. All basketball games, the birth of his son. It hurts my heart that Daunte will not have these memories with his son, Daunte Jr. Daunte Jr. will only remember his dad from the stories and memories that we tell. They only had a very short year together. Because of Kim's recklessness, Daunte was my go-to guy, my helper around the house. People would say he was funny like me, he looked like me, he was cool like me. I would watch Daunte as he slept for many years, thinking, wondering how his future would be and what he would become. And I would kiss and hug him, and he would not like me to do that, obviously, but I would do it anyway. And I would always tell him that no matter what, I got you. From the day he was born until April 11th, I had him. I was always there for my son. Daunte's life was cut short by Kim Potter, who claims she thought she had a taser. She pointed a gun into my chest, into my son's chest, and pulled the trigger, not only killing Daunte by damaging his heart to the point of unrepairable, she also damaged my whole family's heart. Nothing will ever be the same. Everything we do as a family ends in tears, because all we have is memories left of our son. What should be happy times turns into sadness. Kim Potter was trained to prevent this type of thing from ever happening. She was a police officer longer than my son, who was alive. I asked that Kim Potter be held accountable and that the maximum sentence be applied, which is incomparable to the life sentence we have been given because her negligence. My son Daunte's life was taken away way too soon, and he's never coming back. It affected my whole family. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Dominic Bryant, will you please come forward? And please state your full name and spell it.
Damik Bryant, DAMIK BRYANT. First, I want to start off by saying my name is Damik Bryant. I am the oldest child out of my parents' 7 kids. On April 11th, he was killed by the same people we were supposed to trust, who was supposed to serve and protect our community. He was killed by someone who was on the force longer than any of my parents' children have been alive, who was a field training officer at that. We know the charges are manslaughter, but we believe what happened to Daunte was murder. When I got that call about Daunte, I couldn't believe it. I fell to the ground in pain that no one should have to go through. It was the hardest time of our life. We lost a very special person. So I write this letter to you, Daunte Demetrius Wright. We miss you more than ever. Our lives aren't normal anymore. I think about you every day. I lost not only my best friend, but my baby brother. I would remember when we would play games when we were young, and you would get mad if you lost, and you would start crying and turn red in the face because you didn't win. I remember when me, you, Dad, and everybody used to go fishing, and we would argue over who was going to catch the biggest fish. Everything was a competition between us boys. Now we won't be able to compete with each other anymore. I won't be able to see you get old. I won't be able to hear your voice change. I won't be able to tell you I love you one last time. I think about this stuff every day. You were stripped away from us. This has been the longest, most alone, miserable times of our life. We never felt the pain like this. We lost a very important piece to our family. I promise I will never give up fighting for you because that's what big brothers do. So I wrote this little poem I have. Your memory is my keepsake. We'll never be apart. God has you in his keeping, but we'll have you in our heart. You never said I'm leaving. You never said a goodbye. You were gone before we knew it, and only God knows why. There has been a million times that we needed you, and a million times we cried. If our love could have saved you, you never would have died. In life, I love you dearly. In death, I love you still. In our hearts, you hold a place that no one could ever feel. It broke our heart to lose you, but you didn't go alone, for part of us was with you when God called you home. I promised to my family that I would take care of everybody, including our siblings, Dallas, Destiny, Diamond, Monica, Marcus, and of course your baby Daunte Jr. I cannot express how painful it was for our family to see the defendant smiling in her mugshot immediately after being convicted of killing my brother. I respectfully ask the court to give a strong sentence that accounts for the severe pain and loss that our family has experienced. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Rest in peace, Daunte Wright.
Thank you. Diamond Wright, please come forward. And Ms. Wright, will you please state and spell your name?
Diamond Wright, DIAMOND WRIGHT.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diamond Wright. I'm Daunte Wright's second youngest sister. I never thought in a lifetime that I'd be standing here doing this. I never thought that my brother would be killed. Would be killed by the same people we're supposed to feel protected by. I know that the charge is manslaughter, but I believe this should be called murder. Ever since my brother was killed, my heart's been shattered, and the only thing that's putting it back together is the memories we shared. I feel like I've been living in a complete nightmare. It got so bad to where the point I couldn't sleep. I stopped eating and even got depressed. The death of a loved one is not only an emotional pain, but also a physical pain. The defendant should be prosecuted and sentenced to the highest extent. You can't tell me this was an accident. It's in plain sight. She has been a police officer longer than my brother has been alive. How come I have to go see my brother in a metal container just to talk to him? How come I have to pray that my brother hears me cry out to him? How come my family has to groan and moan about the loss of a loved one just because the defendant's actions were reckless? Daunte was my brother, my blood, someone who was supposed to grow old with me. How is it that I'm going to see the age of 21 and he didn't? He didn't get to experience the life he was supposed to. watch his kids grow and watch his kids and parents grow old. Not many of you know Daunte, and I couldn't care less on what anyone else thinks of him. You don't know him. He could light up a whole stadium with his smile and laugh. I miss him stealing food when my mom was cooking at family functions. I miss when he would play fight with me and my little sister. I miss him, and I would trade anyone in this room to get him back. Everyone just sees this as another black man getting killed by the police, but not us. This one hit home. This time it was one of us. Every day I would walk around and it feels like I'm really not here. It feels like I'm just an empty body taking up space. You took my other half. I remember when Daunte was alive and the George Floyd killing was being discussed a lot. Me, my mom, and Daunte were having a talk, saying just maybe we have enough white in us for us not to be a threat to the police. We were wrong. We have repeatedly seen that one hint of black in our skin makes us a target. This is sickening. I miss you, Daunte. I miss your smile, your laugh, the way you twirled your hair when you were nervous or thinking about something. I miss when you used to come upstairs just to talk stuff and then run back down. You were a great big brother. You taught your sisters how to be tough, how to listen, and how to calm down when we were upset. You really did your big brother role well. I love you, Daunte, and you'll always be in my heart until we meet again. Thank you.
Miss China Walker Whitaker.
If we could just have a moment.
Sure. Hey, Miss Whitaker, will you please state your full name and spell it?
China Marie Whitaker, Chyna, Marie Marie, Whitaker, Whitaker. Can I start? Okay. My name is China Whitaker. I am the mother of Daunte's only child, Daunte Wright Jr. Daunte was born 25 weeks premature and had to stay in the NICU for a little over 2 months. During that time, his father and I were very concerned about him making a full recovery. However, by the grace of God, he is still here today. He is now 2 years old, and since April 11th, 2021, fatherless. Kim Potter took my son's best friend away from him, and things haven't been the same since. I am now a single mother, not by choice, by force. My son hasn't seen his dad in almost a year, and I know he doesn't understand what's going on, but he senses his dad being gone. He was used to spending time with his father. Oftentimes, he would stay the night with his dad and have bonding time. That gave me a chance to have a break when I need it. Now I can't even pick up the phone to call him. Due to this situation, my son is a lot more scattered and angry. He acts up a lot more. I now have him in school to learn and socialize with other children to cope during this difficult time in our lives. My child will no longer have the opportunity to spend birthdays or holidays with his dad. Daunte will never get to see his son's first day of preschool, elementary, high school, or college. They didn't even get the chance to play ball or sports together. This is not the way it should be. Every time I look at my son, I'm reminded of what was taken away from him. I show my son pictures and videos of his dad, and his face lights up with the biggest smile, and he says, "Dada." It hurts me because I know if he had the chance to see his dad again, it would fill the hole in his heart that is now there. I can't take the place of his father, neither can any other man. All I can do is hope and pray things get better for us. I now suffer from severe PTSD. Whenever I'm pulled over, I have extreme anxiety. Afraid of making a mistake and something ending up going wrong. I can't watch any movies or videos that have to do with police brutality because it reminds me of Daunte being killed. I got my son a poster of his dad that I keep in his bedroom. Many times I just find him staring at it. My son shouldn't have to wear a rest in peace shirt of his dad. Police are supposed to protect and serve the community. How will my son learn to trust police after what happened to his dad? I don't want my son to grow up afraid of the police or hating them. Nevertheless, it's only fair that Kim Potter be sentenced to the maximum amount of time for executing my son, Daunte Jr.'s father.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll hear the defense arguments regarding sentencing. Mr. Ng.
May it please the court. Kim and State's team. This is beyond tragic for everybody involved. And we hear clearly the statements of the family. We recognize them. There's no disrespect intended to the booking photograph at Shakopee. Ms. Potter indicates they asked her to smile. She smiled. It was not meant to be disrespectful. It was in response to the prison's request. There are two questions for the court today. The first is whether to dispositionally depart, and the second is to durationally depart if you're unwilling to dispositionally depart. So that the key question is the first one. And that is a question of whether or not, in law and in fact, Officer Potter is particularly amenable to probation. And to answer that question, we rely on the probation office to initially evaluate the claim. I often think sometimes probation officers are not given enough credit for the work they do, because there's always disputes at sentencing and they can please no one really. But in this case, the report is exceptional. It's well done. It's well written. It's fair. It says all the bad facts for the defense and all the good facts for us as well. It has a sense of balance to it. And the report does suggest to you that Officer Potter is amenable to probation. It's a recommendation that carries heavy weight because the probation office is what you rely on to make decisions. They do the investigation. They actually talk to the defendant and the family and make a decision or recommendation as to probation and whether she's amenable. And she is, according to that report. So the first hurdle for any defendant asking for amenability findings is to get past the probation report, and we've done that. And that report alone would provide you with authority and reasonable reliance to impose a probationary sentence. This was an unintentional crime. It was an accident. It was a mistake. And the claim in the state's brief as well, the guidelines suggest 86 months, therefore we should follow them. But then if we dig deeper, we realize that the guidelines aren't always followed. And for 60% of the women in Minnesota who face a presumptive commit, they are given probationary dispositions. So on the one hand, we can say, well, the guidelines are 86 months. On the other hand, we should also say they aren't always followed in 60% of the time for females. And for males, they aren't followed in 35%. And in our sister jurisdiction in Ramsey County, they're not followed 50%, according to the most recent evaluation booklet of the Sentencing Guidelines Commission. And the reason they're not followed is that they're too high for many defendants, especially for the first-time defendants. There's a recognition in the court system that individuals who face the court the first time need not go to prison in order to effectuate a just result. So the departure rate is really high. And the question for the court is not only whether she's amenable to probation, but whether she should fall into the 60% range. I got to get my water here for a second. The factors in Trog are clearly found here in a State versus Trog. It was a huge opinion when it came out in 1982. We all, for those of us around in 1982, it was an astounding opinion because it provided the probationary option under the new guidelines. And all the factors that are listed in that case, she meets. There's no record. She's got a 26-year work history. She has expressed contrition and remorse, which I'll talk about a little bit later in terms of the quality of it. She bears no risk of recidivism. She can't be a police officer in the future. There's no danger to the public. She'll never own a gun again, obviously. And that she has enormous community support, which I'll talk about in a second as well. So the factors are all there. You have the report that says probation is available, and then we have the Trog factors, which resonate here. And I often think of, I often think of Judge Amdahl and what he might do here. I mean, he gave a break to Mr. Trog, affirmed that sentence. I dare say, it's hard to know what anyone would do, but I dare say he might find the factors here persuasive for Officer Potter in his memory. What I think the court misses in all these cases is an interaction with the family. we had a chance to be in this room next door, and there's a jury room attached to it. And so we spent a month with Kim's family, and every day there was a new set that came in to be with her. You know, the husband who's here, the sisters are here, and a sister-in-law, but then there were nephews and friends of the family and former police officers, and it was different every day. And they sat in the jury room, and Earl and Man and I sat in the courtroom, and we gave them their time. I wish you could have seen it. You know, I think they were all there to be with her, to pay their respects to her for everything that she had done for them. And I wish you could see the tremendous amount of love they had for her, and non-judgmental empathy they had for her in that room. And we all found it remarkable. And we all found that we should leave them alone. And even during the jury deliberation, she was there with her 2 sons and her husband, and often in her husband's arms, crying. And the boys were with her, and it was moving, I'll say that. And I think they were all there, all the family members and the friends, because she has lived a virtuous life, and they are trying to pay her back. You know, when I think of Kim, I think of someone who's lived out all the virtues that we could imagine. She's a Catholic. I've talked to her about the Catholic virtues. They're well known to Catholics, but perhaps not the courts. The Catholic virtues are prudence, justice, temperance, courage, fortitude, faith, hope, charity. And the biggest virtue of all, of course, is kindness. And she has lived those out. And if we want to be secular, because we are a secular court, we could refer to Aristotle's virtues. And he gave the advice that if we want to live a virtuous life, we practice small acts of virtue, of course. And Aristotle's virtues are courage, temperance, liberality, patience, truthfulness, friendliness, fortitude. And she's done all of that too. So you have to balance this for one 5-second mistake against all of this. And if the virtues get too complex, I often think of a famous line from Saul Bellows, perhaps his greatest book, where he talks about this. He says, I have a feeling about the axial lines of life with respect to which you must be straight. And later in the paragraph, he says, when the striving stops, they are as a gift. So we can forget about the Catholic virtues or Aristotle's virtues and just say, have you lived a straight line? Have you tried to live a straight line, axial or otherwise? And because she's lived a straight line, she has enormous community support. And had she not lived a straight line, she wouldn't be here with all these people that I'm going to talk about. Now, the state contends in their memorandum that the claim of remorse and amenability to probation is, quote, not particularly compelling. We take issue with that. The public would disagree. Since she's been in prison, she has received 3 boxes of cards. Dear Kim, how are you? Dear Kim, we care about you. And I want those to know who wrote these cards. This is just one of 3, by the way. Thousands of cards that she intends to answer each one. So for those of you who are watching, she will answer you because she always has. But let me give you, and I didn't submit all these to the court. I thought I would read a couple just to give you a sample. And they're all very short and heartfelt. This one's from an officer up in the northern part of Minnesota. My dear Kim, she writes, my name is, I work there. I want you to know that even though we've never met, my heart is completely broken for you. And I'm devastated by your situation. I've also been in law enforcement for a long time and have 2 sons, and I'm just destroyed on your behalf. What happened to you could have happened to any of us. As the law enforcement community across the country, we are reeling from the shock of this case. This deputy's hope is that you, Kim, and your family will be protected from feelings of despair and that you may be physically safe. She concludes by saying, I've never been so moved by a situation like this. I want you to know in your heart and remember every day that you are not alone. There's one from Chaska. They're all small cards. People took the time to write her. This is unheard of for a defendant. I dare say no one in this room has ever seen anything like this. Dear Kim, I hope this message finds you well. Heart shape. I do not have the right words, but please know that I support you. I support Blue. You have an amazing community behind you. Please know that you're not alone. You make the world a better place. Be good to yourself and kind to your heart. With love from Chaska. These cards came from all over the country and all over the world, actually. We've gotten cards from Europe. One final one, then I'll move on. This one's handwritten from Brooklyn Park. Dear Ms. Potter, my name is, my heart aches for your situation. I want you to know you're in my prayers constantly. My husband is a retired state trooper and knows the agony of split-second decisions. If okay with you, I'd like to write you regularly. Sincerely, Judy. And roughly a third of these letters want to have continued communications with her. And then, despite the community support and the remorse that she's going to articulate for you again today after I'm done, the state's claim is that she just hasn't done enough or shown enough. You know, we're all unique individuals, and what the state may find to be a level of remorse that they'd like to see may not be what someone feels in their heart themselves. Her feelings are her feelings. And I get the sense that we're somehow, the state is somehow asking to subjectively evaluate her level of remorse and make a standard of subjectivity that they want. But the court has never been required to parse out that sort of level. You're just supposed to look at the trog factors. Does she express remorse or doesn't she? You can't engage in psychoanalysis here. That's not the holding of trog. She was remorseful the moment the gun was fired. She went into trauma. Her officers at the scene then called in the tragedy, and the police responded immediately.
Good morning, everybody. How everybody doing this morning, man? Do you believe this right here? This is the tragedy of Daunte Wright. Good morning. My name is Perfect. It's the Perfect Timing Podcast, backup channel, Perfect Timing Podcast Live. We also live on Facebook right now on Patrick Potter. I came in just to interject, just to reframe what we're watching right now. If you don't recall, live on my other channel, Kim Potter was sentenced for the murder of Daunte Wright. He was murdered at 20 years old. He was pulled over for a traffic stop. Now, what hasn't been said today, one of the videos that you want to go back and watch is a video I did on a bifurcation trial. After Kim Porter's conviction, she was then given an opportunity to go through a separate trial. What's up, Pastor? Good morning. And that separate trial is where they discuss what her sentencing would be. So what you have heard from the defense is that there has already been a hearing on whether or not she is suitable for probation. There has already been a report from the court and the defense, and that report has come back as yes, Kim Potter is suitable for probation. The argument that the defense is framing is not whether or not Kim Porter is going to jail. They are already saying that they have already won that fight. That's the only reason why I'm coming in, everybody, to make sure you're clear that you're understanding what's going on. The defense is saying they've already won the fight, that Kim Porter is eligible for probation. The only discussion that's happening now is whether or not how long that probation will be and the severity of that probation. And what they're saying is that 60% of the women don't receive any jail time or basically any level of severe probation. And he went so far to say even men in this circumstance receive probation upwards of 50% of the time. So this is very curious to me at what's going on. The discussion of how long she will be sentenced is not even on the table for the defense. I just want everybody to be clear on what's being discussed, that there is already a report from the judge that she is eligible for probation. The discussion right now is the fact that we are in the 60th percentile of individuals who receive no punishment, that this is an accident, that she was immediately remorseful. He is discussing letting her go home. He is referring to the 2 weeks that she has spent incarcerated as prison time. What you got, Pastor? I can't hear you. There you go. There you go. I heard something. You know, I'm on. There you. I can hear you going in and out. You know, I'm on the backup channel, so I'm like, I don't know if it's my audio or your audio, but it's the pastor audio. Hey, man, this is real powerful, man, because when this case first started, I hadn't lost my mom. Rest in peace to my mom. So when I heard this father get up on the stand and say what he had to say, hey, you coming in, break a 1-9, coming in fine one time. Go ahead, bro.
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Good morning, man.
And you know what? And I was listening to what you were saying, brother. I agree with you 100%. Like the thing, and he's even moving to the point where he's explaining through a social critic. He's giving her social credit right now. He's saying that people in society and around the world are saying that or supporting her being back into society. So my thing is, has the social credit score always been here? And is that what law is really about?
Come on now.
Is that what making someone, is that what the presumption of innocence is all about?
I'll tell you this, when I was in court and I did some heinous shit, I didn't go to prison. And my mom and my grandmother, rest in peace, knew what they had to do. They brought my mom and my grandma came to court. They bought me a suit, and my pastor, well, really my grandmother's pastor, which was, the pastors got 504C. We talking about San Francisco. So imagine Dallas or Houston, a black pastor with a multi-million-dollar church. This is not a small thing. This pastor is interwoven into politics, right? So when this matters that she's a police officer and who will speak on her behalf. You see who spoke on Daunte's behalf? Them people don't pay taxes. Them people are not homeowners. The people who will speak on Kimberly's behalf will be people with status in the community and leaders in the community. So when that pastor came in and spoke on my behalf and said, Dennis will go to church every Sunday and will be under my purview, that's all the judge needed to hear. That is equivalent. That is equivalent to anything that I could give in this courtroom. And anybody outside of this courtroom, I don't care what they think about it. Because what you just stated, Pastor, is absolutely true. The social credit score has always been into effect. And even more so, that women bowled even higher. And it's always been that way. That's why he interjected women and Catholic. That's why I said my pastor came, and my pastor is the reason why my case was sentenced the way it was. I'm a Baptist, but in this community, just like with Kyle Rittenhouse, it matters that she's Catholic and that she's a devout Catholic and that she regularly attends church. And if her parishioner speaks on her behalf, that's the same thing as a probation officer.
Exactly. And since we've always been working under this social credit score that we haven't actually realized, but it's becoming quite evident. Like you say, man, those cats had tattoos in their face. The mother was a throwaway of her community.
Come on.
The father. I mean, he's like to be a decent brother. That had a decent brother, but
he's unemployed.
Exactly. He's so at this point. So at this point, he's unemployed. He's not providing for his family. He has a throwaway from their community. Her first son was obviously, white, and then he had more. Then he came in and had more kids with, again, a throwaway. And it's socially they have no credit. Your sons had to get out here in society and be suspected of bad behavior because of where you allowed them to live, how you allowed them to look, how you allowed them to be in society. She's been on the job for 20 years and 20 plus, however long she's been on, and she's not had this issue before. So This is why they're trying to compare them socially. And I don't know if it's not going to work. I really can't say that it's not going to work.
I think it's already worked. They already have a report saying that she's eligible for probation. She's a 20-year cop. You know what's so messed up about this is that his disregard for Daunte and the family. He's not even speaking to the action. Have you noticed that? He's moved past it.
He's moved to her social credit.
Right.
He's moved way past that.
He's beyond the death. He's beyond the sentencing. He's beyond the emotion. He's actually a pretty good lawyer. I mean, beyond the fact that I'm disgusted by him, I would want him to be my lawyer because he's moved beyond the fact of emotion. He understands that Kim is right. He's very smart. She's already been convicted.
Mm-hmm.
He's dealing with the fact that we are in the sentencing stage and they are talking about the trial. No, I'm fighting for the sentence, and I've already put in the work. I've got the report from the state that she's eligible for probation, and now I'm going in on the numbers. And Pastor, you do that a lot. I'm going in on the numbers. This is what women get. This is what women who are police get, and this is what women in her position get. 60% of the women don't get no time. 60%. So he says, we already are done talking about jail time. We're talking about probation. And no one is listening. That's why I wanted to stop the video because he's already won. He said, we're not talking about jail time. She's already convicted. I got a report. All we're talking about is how much probation she's going to get. And my argument is that most people in her case don't get any amount of severe probation. That's the discussion. He's reframed the argument. He's excellent at what he's done. And it's extremely sad because what Pastor, my little brother, is pointing out is the lack of value. When we say social credit, he's saying that the value for the mother, the father, and the child that life was taken, even his son, has no social credit, no value. And Pastor's asking because the pandemic solution was to interject a social credit score in the European countries. They already have it in China. And Pastor said, well, do we already have it here? Do we already have it here when this argument can be discussed when this dead body got to sit in the grass? Pastor, I know you noticed that because you're a health professional, me too. And that's one of the things I screamed about on my videos, the fact that nobody administered any help to this young man or the old couple. And then when he crashed, he was at gunpoint for 5 minutes, and we didn't know that I heard in the trial that they yanked him out the car by gunpoint, but after they yanked him out the car, they left him in the grass to bleed out and die because we know he wasn't dead yet. So the whole point of this was that he had to die. He could not testify to what took place. So they let him bleed out in the grass. She should be in jail for murder one, and those cops on the scene should be charged. It's a pretty bad case.
For involuntary manslaughter.
It's crazy. And
the crazy thing about it is, if we look back at what her lawyer's done, he is showing literally no remorse for any of that.
None.
And at first I thought that was a bad tactic. But if you're pushing for the verdict that he's pushing for, you don't have time to show that remorse that we're talking about.
He did it already.
You can't play both hands.
No, he moved past it. He's moved past it.
Yeah, you cannot play both hands. You have to draw a line and you have to pick a side.
And they didn't do that. I hope that don't work against the prosecution. The prosecution is still trying to try the case. She's already guilty. Y'all don't got to prove her as a bad person. You need to be fighting for how much time she should get. And I didn't hear them do that. I didn't hear them do that.
They haven't drawn the line in the sand. They still talking about manslaughter and murder and
emotion.
Yeah, exactly. They have yet to draw a line in the sand and directly ask for what they want.
Right.
They didn't say we want life without parole. They just said this should be murder, and they're not going to be able to see them, and they're not going to be able to see me, and she's going to see her family. That's not giving the judge direct.
That's not a legal argument. That's not a legal argument.
It's not a legal
argument.
Sounds
good, but you are very right. That doesn't help her make her decision. Like when she makes her decision, she has to put that out of her head and look at the rules and look at the sentencing guidelines, and she breaks down the numbers because she don't want to get fired and she want to get promoted. So if this defense is putting forth to me an argument that in the percentages are this, I got to go by the numbers. This is my job. I don't go off emotion. Off of emotion. Where's your report? Where's your report that says that I got to put her in jail or she going to kill somebody else? She's not going to be a cop. She's not going to have a gun again. Y'all should be arguing why she should be in prison. Where's the report? A psychiatric report, a mental report, some type of report that shows she's broken and she made a bad decision. She has an inability to make decisions and she needs to rehabilitate that brokenness incarcerated. And they haven't done that, right?
Well, the problem that they've done, they created a bigger problem for themselves. They keep saying what the police that we pay to protect us should have done. They keep saying should. And should is, we don't know what should is. And what her lawyer has done is he's taken the should out and he's showing who she is. You don't, and that's one thing about it is he's using his words. He's using his words to be like, you know what? I can't tell you who she is. I can show you who she is. I can show you who she is through all these letters of support. I can show you who she is through all these years of service. So he's going from a show me state he's straight Missouri on this shit.
Right.
And they're going from the shoulda, coulda, woulda. They come from Kansas. Right. They're down that Never Wonderland shit. So
it ain't gonna get you nowhere. It ain't gonna get you nowhere. It might feel good. It might feel good. It might feel good right now talking that shit to her, but that ain't what you want. You don't want to just talk shit to her. You want her in prison. And that's really where the social credit comes in, and the lack of understanding of social skills. You know what I mean? And it's sad because I don't know how much responsibility we can put on the lawyers for preparing them, because they probably wanted to say that, but that shit was supposed to be said in the trial. And you know what else that may backfire on them and work for the defense is that the day has changed. It's not 2020, and we have a 40% increase in crime across the nation. Out here in California, y'all see the news, 20 youngsters running in the store every week in Vallejo, in Merced, in San Francisco, in Oakland, every week. And then they doing it, and it's becoming a trend outside of California. 30 people running in the jewelry store, 30 people running in the Louis, more murders. It's an uptick of 40-50% of violent crime. So people are not like feeling the same way about police as they did in 2020. People are empathetic and sympathetic to police because they are. Just the other day at a park that I go to in this nice white neighborhood, the white lady got punched in the face 10 times by a homeless person while she was putting her kid in the car for no reason at all. The homeless person went and under the freeway and laid down and took a nap. The police found him. He didn't fight. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just beat her up and then went back to his little box and went back to sleep. And nobody knows why. This is just a daze. This is what we living in. He didn't hide.
We all know why. Because you know what? When those riots happened and they started marching, what's the first place they went to? In LA, where did the homeless people camp their tents at? If you look at in Canada, where do those truckers put those porta potties in those trucks at? Right in front of Trudeau's cabinet. Right there, they go to people tend to go to their leaders or people of higher standards or higher living qualities, and they attack them because they feel slighted or damned by them. It's going to always happen, and that is the reason why. And that's the reason why this lawyer is pulling his social credit score right now. These people pulled up with tattoos on their face, talking about shoulda, coulda, woulda, mad as hell, talking about falling out and pain and no direction. And you want me to sit here and throw a 20-year veteran of the police department in jail over a mother? Yeah,
feminism, Me Too, post Dave Chappelle. So we not mad at the police right now. We mad at Daunte Wright. See, things have changed. She might not have got convicted in 2022. You know what I'm saying? This is the perfect perspective. This is my brother passing $40. Make sure you sign in and live and subscribe to my backup channel, Perfect Time Podcast Live, because this is where we break down a different perspective. And people might not want to have this type of conversation. I said she may not have been found guilty in 2022.
She may not.
Because we feel differently about the black man in 2022. That's what I've been screaming. That's why we got the Asian hate crime bill and we did not get police reform, because our opinion of the black man has changed, and that's not by accident. That's by design. We once cared about black male lives. We don't care anymore. And now we care more about police officers' lives, and we care more about the lives of women.
Because shit, this bro, let me say this one more thing that because even if you look at our last Super Bowl, Mary J. Blige, she was tied to hologistics. I was trying to talk about that. She's talking about her health, her wealth is the name of that commercial, and it's all and there is millions, billions of she's the face of that company, and it was all about women and women's health. And they went there and showed 50 Cent and called him fat. And he'll washed up, throw him away. And they showed it to you in your own Super Bowl. So in the future, as a black man, you're going to have to work on your social credit score personally.
Excellent.
And you have to work on your own health. Yeah.
Now, imagine if that was Lizzo. Imagine if that was Lizzo and people were calling her fat. We would have to listen to a whole week of talk shows and get correction about body shaming. But a black man, just like we could pick on Bootsy, even though Bootsy has 8 children, we can call him homosexual because he was incarcerated. It's okay, but you can't make gay jokes, but you can make a gay jokes about a heterosexual man. You can say that about Bootsy, right? You can't make fat jokes about people, but you can make a fat joke about a black heterosexual man. This is a trend. This trend needs to be understood. This is why I brought up that I don't believe she would have been convicted in 2022 because of what you just stated and how it is and our value, our social credit, our work. For a minute, it was discussed for 18 months. After that police officer put his knee on our neck for 9 minutes, the world understood that black heterosexual men have no value, have no social credit. So people were in outrage and said black men lives matter. They deserve to have value, a social credit. Well, guess what? That's dissipated. That's dissipated. And I would charge and posit that it's our fault. Because we've been bogged down, like you said last night. We've been confused mercenaries without a path, without a mission. And we rather fight and argue. And it's led us to destruction. But see, what's happening is these no good old farts have benefited. And when I said the race to the bottom, the race to the bonnet, I said, I gave the financial analogy that certain individuals benefit off the replace. This is the definition of race to the bottom. There is an original standard, the banana pudding and the pound cake. That standard is then replaced with a substandard, a box cake and a refrigerator banana pudding. The thing about the new substandard is individuals make money off of selling the box cake. Individuals make money off of selling the icebox banana pudding, right? So there's a new market created off of selling you convenience at a lower frequency. BGS and these individuals are selling box cakes. And what we want to bring back is the from scratch. Because there ain't nothing like from scratch. If you want it to last, if you want that real thing, that real deal, it got to be from scratch. That goes to your courting conversation versus the dating conversation. Dating is from box, right? That's an instant meal when you date, right? Instant. But courting is that from scratch, right? That from scratch love. And you got to have all the ingredients. It takes time. It takes perfect timing, right? And you got to have the right temperature and everything to bake a cake from scratch.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And you know what? And that shit all goes, and all of that shit goes back into I'm glad you said that, yo. And it all goes back
Confused
into
mercenary. That was a good point, bro. That was
Thank
a
you,
good
man.
point. That was a good
Thank
point. See, the thing is that people don't realize that there's still leaders amongst the confused. And there's still people that benefit off of you being like sheep stay sleep. That's a great name, right? Because there are shepherds in the sheep, right? And those shepherds benefit. Those
They do.
shepherds need sheep. BGS is not valuable without sheep.
It's not. Look, that cake ain't valuable without people that are willing to commune and take slices. It all boils down to your social credit. If you burn that cake, ain't nobody gonna come around and take slices of that cake. If you put, you know what I'm saying? If so it all boils down to your social credit score and how good your name is and how good your work is in these streets. And BGS, his name and his work has not been good in these streets. BGS is on some. He's looking like Daunte Wright right now, and I'm not
That's
trying
the
to
whole
diss that,
sacred
bro.
cow. That's the sacred cow analogy. That's
Well,
what
they're trying to make Dante a sacred cow. And I'm not saying he deserved to die. God knows I'm not saying that. Forgive me if it comes across if I am saying that. I do not mean that by one means. But what I'm saying is when you don't have the best reputation, because sometimes your reputation can precede you, and a lot of times your look, the music, the environment, all that can precede you. And what we're saying in this environment where it has preceded BGS and his bullshit has led to nothing but there was a dude that and I ain't gonna say no names. I cannot say no names, yo. But someone told me on the phone that BGS told them to go slap their girlfriend up because she wasn't acting right. And they called another one of the brothers, and the other brother said, no, don't go do that. Don't go do that. So I'm glad the brother got a second opinion, and that's one thing that we don't get even in the medical field anymore, a second opinion. And I'm glad that brother got a second opinion, because that brother could have really been. When I heard that BGS, because you got to really, and people, and we love to say, don't believe what someone else say about me. Come find out from me. If I come find out from you, you're going to spin a narrative. People ain't gonna lie about you. If people call you a duck, if people say you quack a lot, then eventually everyone is saying you're a duck. People can't keep lying on you, but yet you want us to keep. But see, what they want is you to come back and see the individual person and apply the law or rewrite the law for the individual person. BGS want us to reapply what manhood is, reapply how we deal with how we have conversations, just to deal with this, to be around him. And that's what this lawyer is showing you. No, we're not. What do the masses say? I can play the masses against you trying to play an individual, change the law just because you say so.
What credit do you have? What value do you have?
Exactly.
And that's what happened on the panel that's what happened with Raw L. What's happening now is the sacred cow is being slaughtered, because for so long you've been held up in so high regard without any value behind it. That's a sacred cow. Like this big thing, but it's no longer valuable anymore to anyone. What does it mean anymore? So the villagers are saying we need to eat that cow, because it's just getting fatter and fatter, and we're getting hungry, and it doesn't serve any value anymore. So Raw L was saying, do you share them? What do you do? What value do you bring? At this point in time, we are in such a bad position as Black men. We got to ask, what value do you bring? What value do you bring?
He's a leader that would take us into the middle of Persia and talk about 87, 89 octane, getting into your feelings, doing exactly what they are messing up right now in this case and doing. Where the brothers are looking for leaders that are going to galvanize them, to tell them what they say bad about us, we're going to use that to show how good we are. What they say is evil about us, we're going to use that to show how good we are. We're going to let everything our enemy does propel our drive forward. We will have a direction straight through this shit. They're not looking for no confusion.
We will. And this is what I want to say to all of the detractors is like, I'm one of the things that God has echoed in my mind is commitment. And I've been doing a lot of research, and one of the things I keep hearing in my mind is people who really understand this freedom outside of what the construct that they've been giving us. And one of the people I was researching in the Stoic, and he was saying that you had to kill me. And this is when I was researching the truckers in Canada, and he said, what would get you off of this trucker, this convoy? He said, you would have to kill me. Either we're going to get the mandate removed, or you're going to have to kill me. That's the only thing that's going to remove me from this truck in this blockade. We want that mandate removed, or you're going to have to kill me. And that conviction has been missing. Like, this is why I relate to Charleston White, because Charleston White said, when I was standing up for Black people, I was the only one that had that conviction. The only time that y'all got that conviction is for the gang. And I'm speaking to social credit score and how we find ourselves in this position. And recently what I found is that with this YouTube shit and these sacred cows and these wolves, is that I've taken on the moniker that I'm going to do this shit. The only way you're going to stop me from doing this shit is if I die. I don't give a fuck if I got to create another channel. I don't give a fuck how many people subscribe. I'm not going to give up. I don't give a fuck if I don't have no support, because what I've understood is that Black men are broken, and I'm going to love Black men whether they support me or not. Now, black man might have to play catch up when God bless me with all of the light that he gonna bless me with. So I wouldn't want to be those little pigs and be like, oh, perfect, you know, I remember you, because the scripture said that it's gonna be my right to turn away from you no good niggas and act like I never knew you. Even though if you was on my panel, the lack of support from black men, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna just say to the people who haven't supported me and the people who want to shut me down, I'm not gonna stop. Just like them people in that blockade in Canada, you're gonna have to kill me. BGS, fuck BGS, fuck BGS, fuck anybody that support BGS, fuck all you niggas. And I just really mean that. And I can't wait. I can't wait for my blessing. And I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop grinding. 5.0 is footprints in the sand. The 5.0 is a steamroller. I'm not gonna stop. I will create another channel every day. Go tell somebody right now, because I know nobody watching me right now really give a fuck. The only people watching is people watching to see a failure. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop.
And you
I'm
know
not
what?
gonna stop. You can't kill me, you can't stop me, and you're not better than me. I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna keep making my content no matter what and how I gotta make my content. And I just want to say, fuck everybody. I just want to say, fuck everybody for your lack of support. I don't need you. I
You
don't
don't.
need you. Fuck everybody for your lack of support. I don't need you. I'm gonna keep smashing, and I will build. Pastor, all of my new subscribers have not been nobody from the Black Manosphere. Nobody from the Black Manosphere support. Nobody that I'll be asking myself, I'll be like, do I really have an audience? And it's very obvious that I do not have an audience. It's just a bunch of niggas watching to see something. The niggas only show up when there's beef. Niggas don't want to get help. And this is the way YouTube works. It's just a bunch of broken niggas and broke niggas. Broken and broke at the same time. And if you are trying to fix people, they don't want to get fixed. They just want to stay broken. That's why he probably told people to slap somebody. This family is broken. This family is crying. They son never gonna come back. And all we are is a bunch of bitches in this space. In my last sermon, I said, you hypocrite. The whole manosphere is hypocrites. Will not take the plank. How the fuck can a broke nigga living with his mama, Edward Anderson, all you bitch ass niggas, BGS, none of you niggas got cars, houses, none. Angry Man is the only nigga, and he was homeless for the whole time he been on YouTube. He just now got something. Bitch ass nigga, the nigga you look up to been homeless for the past 7 years. I ain't never been like that. My mama never been like that. My grandma, she had a Cadillac every year. My mama had a Cadillac every year. I never had roaches. I always had pennant lopers, London Fog, Brooks Brothers suits every Sunday. Nigga.
But you know what some broken people and some very well-established people, they have something in common. They learn to draw the line. Like that daggone guy, that homeless guy that beat that woman up, he drew the line. He drew the line. He said, I know where I am, and I know what I am, and I know what I want to do to you, because I know. And when you draw that line, you can wage war on your enemy, because there's a line drawn. You know that everybody on that side is an enemy. You can draw a line. And that's what has happened, man. These sacred cows, believe it or not, have drawn the line at the top of the pyramid, and they are raining down, and nothing is trickling down. Nothing is trickling down. That's the reason why they hold no social credit score, because they're trickling nothing down.
It ain't even the sacred cows. It's the black men. It's the black men. Like Rod L changed his tune, but Rod L once told me that BGS got to be respected. It's the same thing that we talk about with black women. When we want to blame black women, we can't blame BGS. It's not BGS. BGS is the no good bitch, right? And what we've learned in this space by 5.0, by all the different .0s, is you can't blame that no good bitch for your current station.
Yeah,
You
blame
knew
yourself.
she was a no good bitch when you met her, but you fucked her anyway. These niggas know BGS ain't shit. Grandmaster Troll exposed him for not being a stand down, 10 toes down, stomp down real nigga ever in his life. But you still want to respect him. That panel happened after Grandmaster Troll exposed him for being a nothing ass nigga for his entire existence. He still on that panel said, I'm a Grandmaster teacher with no ownership. He's not you. He's never been you. He's never been me. He's
Nope.
never been you. He's never been me. He wants, at 60-something years old, he wants credit for something he's never accomplished. He ain't got no degrees. He's never worked professionally. He never married successfully. He's never raised good kids. He's never been me and you. And he wants to be social credit for a grandmaster teacher. It's not his fault. It's our fault for being with a no good bitch. That's what we've learned in this space. Stop blaming the bitch. Remove the plank from your eye. Stop saying that bitch ain't no good when you know that bitch ain't no good. I'm going to stop saying BGS ain't shit because we know BGS ain't shit. Grandmaster Troll exposed him, exposed Charles, exposed these sacred cows. So for niggas and Jessica X, so for niggas who continue to follow somebody who ain't never been shit, that make you ain't shit. That's why Rod L and people got to call him out. It's so hard for a real nigga to follow a fake nigga. I'm a real nigga. I've been believing in you, and I'm waiting for you to redeem yourself after you got doxxed. He hasn't done so. So Rod L and other real niggas is like, what are you, bro? Because am I just giving you this credit because you owe? Because Rod L needed something. You hear me? Rod L needed something. Am I just giving you this because you old and black? Because I can't do that no more. I can't do that no more. I cannot be your fool. I cannot be your sheep. Am I just giving you this because you old and black? Because he wanted to give BGS respect. He wanted to give him that. But what are you going to give, man?
You know what he gave him? He gave him one of the hardest slights to the chest you could ever give. He Rael. I don't think Rael was raised with his mother. I think his mother, maybe she wasn't around. Maybe she passed, And
yeah, I heard what he said.
He said get off your mama's titty. Like that's where we at right now, bro.
To the person who brought us Alonzo Hall, estate planning. Me and my wife still together because of the books, Rod L. And I don't know if people like some people have said to me, most men don't comprehend what's being said at certain levels, but I comprehend. So I bought the books that Rod L. I know people probably like tuned out when I speak and when Rod L speak, but I listened, I took notes. I wrote down the authors, I wrote down the books. I bought 3 books for my wife and we still together. And then she gave those 3 books to her big sister. You know what? Her big sister's getting married in October. She told me, thank you for reading those books about growing up with a narcissistic mother. Her guy she was dating now feel comfortable to ask her to get married. They watch Kevin Samuels together. You know, a lot of them black couples that are engaged getting married in 2022, they watch Kevin Samuels together. Have you heard that trend, Pastor?
Probably. I don't follow Kevin Samuels stuff.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the black men that you know that got a black woman they about to marry. Have they sat her down and does she watch and have watched and cool? Like most of the couples I know that are black professionals like you, they have they woman are like Toya. They woman is red pill. They woman understand that most black women ain't shit, and they dig Kevin Samuels, and that's why they got a black man who's a professional, high value, getting married. It's a trend. It's a trend now, and black women who have money and who want a man like Pastor $40, they understand how to get him. They know who Kevin Samuels is, and they are a fan. I know a couple couples like this.
You know what? I can definitely see that because of my I know married people that I do you right. Now I think about it, it's mainly married people that I know that actually watch Kevin Samuels. And maybe that's why Kevin Samuels had to make a deal rather than be a scapegoat. Because if he would have, because I understand a lot of people say that he should stay on this. He had to worry about his social credit score.
Yeah.
He had to worry about his social credit score. And I don't think he's even selling out. I think he had to realize what's selling out. You selling out to a bunch of internet fakes over something that's written in stone.
What's
I don't know if
selling
it's
out?
really. I don't know if it's really selling out.
People don't understand the mission statement. They don't understand the mission statement, bro, because they've never worked at a level above fucking Applebee's. You understand this shit. I understand this shit. But for some people, it's foreign because you never worked and made over $75,000 a year. So when you interview, it's not a panel and they're not asking you about the mission statement of the company. You don't care about the mission statement of Popeyes. But when you go work for Methodist, when you go work for Mercy, you might be concerned with the mission statement because that one hospital in Houston was doing some ill-ass shit. So as a professional, I need to know the mission statement of this hospital. Is it nonprofit? Is it a church organization? Because it's going to dictate the level of care or the corporation. What's the mission statement? We don't understand the Kevin Samuels mission statement. And he said it's black love and black people getting married. That's where I be so confused about why people don't like him. His mission statement is black love and black marriage. And black people have gotten married.
That's the thing about that's the thing about this red pill stuff. It's like I don't think we need to get out of this. I mean, it's really just reality. And the thing about it, you can market. The thing about it is, man, he learned to market reality socially, which pushed his social credit score. That's what this lawyer right now is doing. He's trying to push in reality her social credit score, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what it keeps. To me, it's become obvious. For a long time, it wasn't as obvious as it just like within these last couple of days has become to me about your social credit score, and that's the reason why everyone keeps talking about these different mandates and how the internet is cracking down. The internet, it's not trying to force you to be a better person, but it's trying to give you a chance to up your credit score. So when you do get into some fucked up shit, you got people that can vouch for you. They can, and then you got a good lawyer that can vouch for what the community says about you and can point that judge in a direction to get you out of sticky situation.
This is the failure point, another failure point of black men. Because I brought this up last night on your panel, and I bring this up a lot. Well, you know, we can't even bring up Kevin Samuels no more. We can't even bring up Kevin Samuels, and we can't even bring up the tenements of the high-value men. And it's because black men are such pussies. Emotional bitches and pussies. You can't even bring up Kevin Samuels on no panel that's going to be a bitch-ass nigga saying, oh, I don't like him. Nigga, you ain't fucking him, nigga. And what you're talking about is some important tenements of high-value men. But I understand why, because black men feel like they can't be these type of men. And I've been challenging men. And one of the things he talk about, what is in a high-value man, that's one of the most important values is a network. You got to build a network. You're not a high-value man unless you have respect amongst other men and not on YouTube, outside of YouTube, in the public space. You got to be networking. Other people have to know you, know what you do, and could speak on your reputation, right? You a nurse. Other people know your professionalism, 300. You have a network, a professional network, a social network. Your mom religious, that's a huge, you got multiple networks that converge upon each other. You have a network from your professional endeavors. You have a network from your social endeavors as a young man. You have a network from your spiritual connections. You a real high value man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
We don't get to talk about these tenements and challenge black men on these things, because if you bring up Kevin Samuels and you bring up the 7 aspects of a high value man, black men start bitching.
I don't think it's because we are so caught up on an image that we don't understand. We
No,
don't.
it's the sacred cows. The
Yeah,
sacred cows did it. Angry
yeah.
Man did it. BGS did it. They are women. Angry Man and BGS are women. These black female bitches, these bitch ass niggas created this paradigm to where we cannot even benefit from all the hard work this brother did. So he got to 2 million subscribers. He's mainstream, and everything he said is bullshit because Angry Man said he got it from him. Angry Man didn't say that Kevin Samuels is wrong. BGS and these niggas who hating on him by saying that Kevin Samuels is wrong, they just pissy about it. So because they so pissy, we can't even discuss the tenements of high value men. You can't even bring it up. It's a sensitive topic amongst men. Men should have no sensitive topics. We bitches, blood.
But you
Straight
know,
bitches. If
one
you
of the
bring it up, it's gonna cause an argument. And I've done this several times, and you know what the sad part is in the success of these bitch ass sacred cows? No black men even know. Like the black woman last night didn't know what red and blue pill is, and everybody had a different definition. So I went to Google. Guess what else black men don't know because of the bullshit? They don't know the tenements of the high value men. Everybody just wants to say there's no such thing.
exactly.
But everybody else knows he has 2 million subscribers. So the only people not applying this knowledge, not understanding this knowledge, not taking the meat and spitting out the bones are the black men who created the knowledge.
Because they're nothing but intelligent soldiers. They're nothing but they're nothing. This is what I was talking about, bro. They went behind enemy lines, 82nd Airborne. We brought in all the info from our divorces, from our relationships, from being foodie dates. We brought in everything. We brought in this what was happening socially. Right. She was talking about the social credit score, right? We brought in everything that was happening socially. Whoever can package it was going to do the best. And for them to draw this hard line, because it really hurt brothers in the field of battle. Because if brothers feel like they only have to wear a suit to be able to go into a conversation, or to only be able to wear a jogging suit, because any way you look at it, it's still a suit. A jogging suit, a three-piece suit. It's still a suit. And for you to give these brothers these one, it doesn't help them socially. You have to give them multiple disciplines in order to make them a complete fighter out here.
That was the beauty of the high value man. It was 7 tenements, 7. And it was irrespective of your race. It was just what he observed from being in high levels of corporate America. The reason why I always agreed with those tenements, because just like you, I've been in high levels of corporate America. I've managed project managers, high level project management events worth multi-millions of dollars in hospitals, billions of dollars. Like on this level, you're promoted at the wine party in Napa. I've been to so many restaurants, and this is how it works. These people be getting drunk. They need to know that you cool. It's just like Hollywood at high levels of corporate America. Everything is a party. Everything is a social event. Dennis, we need to plan this. We need to get this person there. We need to have this alcohol, and then we're going to have a conversation. That's what Russell Simmons, that's the way it's done. So when he's explaining to you that your woman has to look like this, you have to speak like this, you have to dress like this, he's talking about social credit so that you can get to this party. It's the same thing Tupac said. It's the same thing every rich, you have to be able to get to the party. That's what being rich is.
Exactly. And what they're doing is, so we have one side is telling us how to get into the party to be entertainment. Then the other side is trying to get us into the party to sit at the table, but not be fluid or cool enough to be able to really make moves in the table. So it's really weird, because if the entertainment side could get a little bit of the business side, they could make moves. And if the business side got a little bit more of the entertaining, cool side, they could make more moves, and it would socially work out. Like, you know what? No one's perfect, but if we can take our imperfections and put them into something, we can actually draw a line in the sand because we know who's cool and we know who's not. Just like they're doing right now. She might have shot a motherfucker. She might have worked on the she might have been to a whole lot of parties with the police and been drunk. She might have said some crazy shit. We know people ain't perfect, but she's being around enough and in the circle enough to be able to draw a line of us versus them. And it's more of them. It's more of us on her side than those on the other side. She has a stronger army. She has a stronger army, and what's happening is we're running in with a weak ass army because we're running with a weak ass army. Okay, we act like snipers don't know how to shoot ARs and handguns and stab people and throw knives and shit. We're going into this fight of this world socially, economically, lawfully, one dimensional tactics of and it's not looking good.
Let's go back to the tape, bro. Let's go back to the video. Let's see. I want, because Kim Porter's gonna speak, and I want to see. I don't know if they're gonna sentence her today, but I want to see how this play out, bro. Thank you for coming up and having a conversation with me. We're gonna go back to the video, everybody. Make sure you comment, make sure you vote. You got to subscribe to vote. Vote in the panel, vote in the poll. Make sure you comment. Let me know if you think Kim Porter should get probation or she should go to prison. We're gonna go back to the video. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you, Pastor $40, 5.0 Builder Sphere in the building.
The state contends that she has no quote unquote moral anguish, but the record is replete that she does. I mean, she testified she does. The videos of Kim crying on the ground are replete with moral anguish. I mean, we just can't have a Kafkaesque standard of what remorse is and then have the state say, well, you haven't met our standard. We ask, well, what is the standard? And then we just haven't seen enough remorse, so we don't know what the standard is. And so we never can meet what their standard is. But that's not how law works. It's never worked that way. So the question again is whether she's amenable and should be included in those 60%. The state seems to agree that she is at page 6 of their memo. They set out the various conditions that would satisfy them. So it's a hedging memo. It's the kind of memo that concedes that the defense has a claim for amenability. And the conditions that they want, we accept. I mean, they want a meeting with the family, and we accept that. We would do that. In the adversarial system, that's impossible. But now it is, and we would welcome that with court supervision somehow. They want Ms. Potter to give speeches and presentations about weapons confusion. We will do that. She's willing to go across the state and talk about that to the extent that she can discuss the confusion and design features of a taser and how inappropriate they may be. We'll be happy to do that. It was something that was not possible before trial, but it's possible now. The other factors for probation that go beyond TROG are vulnerability to the prison setting. She is in an isolated setting right now in Shakopee. They have her isolated because they don't want her in the regular population. As a police officer, she would be vulnerable to assault. The people in prison, in order to get prison, can be quite violent. Those 40% of the women. So they've isolated it, and the related ground for amenability to probation or for probationary disposition is that there has been a diminution of her mental health while in isolation. And I know the court's intent was never to place her in isolation in prison, but the fact of the matter is that in my discussions with the prison officials, they have decided that she should see no one. So all she does is spend her days getting checked every 30 minutes by a guard, making isolated phone calls, and staying in her cell. And as a result, she, like many people who are in isolation, suffer from a decline of mental and physical health. And we know from statistics and the analysis of social science that isolation in prison is harmful. And so while the court never dreamed that perhaps that she would be in such an isolated setting, it is harming her. So we have on the one hand punishment, but on the other hand, if you send her to prison, you will harm her. We are not in the business of harming defendants. If there's any question about it, we've submitted her therapist's letter to you in confidence, confirming that such isolation is harmful, given her fragile state and her diagnosis. The greatest sin of all in the church and in secular world is a failure of generosity. And I submit to you that Kim never committed that sin willingly or intentionally. She, in her world, met the obligation to do good. And she did. And because she did good, we ought not be cheap about her life either, because it's been a generous life to everybody she's met. You know, Hennepin County is a wonderful district because it's innovative. It's the busiest district in the state, but you know, the bench is famous for providing programs to first-time offenders to keep them out of jail. The drug court was tremendously innovative. Remand was innovative. The property courts. You know, there's a veterans court, and all these ideas were new once they started, and they were tremendous because they kept people out of prison. And they engaged in sort of a forgiveness if they would do certain things. And, you know, in drug court, for example, many people were looking at presumptive commits and never went. They got help, they got treatment. And they were a part of the 30% of men who don't go. And we're famous for this. This is a district with a big heart. And the other districts across the state have adapted and adopted what we've done here in Hennepin County. And we should be thinking along the same lines for her. I've got a got a couple letters, and then I'll reach the durational departure, and then we'll hear from Kim. You know, I've submitted all these to the court. I know you've read them. This is just profound. This too is unheard of. And I must tell you, I edited out at least 25 to 50 that I didn't send. That were redundant or just not quite right to send. Some of them questions what happened here, which is okay to voice, but this is tremendous. And these are, the last part just came in to Brooklyn Center for her. And I had no difficulty requesting people to write letters. They just kept coming and coming. I have a stack in my office which came in too late. But I have, I've read them all, and there's one that, there are a couple that I'd like to quote to you because they tell us who she is and why you should give her a break here. The first one's from an EMT. This was written to me and I've sent it to you. I want to quote parts of it. I hope I can get through it, frankly. Although I only knew Officer Potter professionally throughout my 25 paramedic career, I had never witnessed Officer Potter mistreat, disrespect, nor use any force on any individual. Officer Potter had an amazing way of connecting with everybody. She was nothing but professional, helpful, caring to the other first responders and individuals in crisis involved in a 911 call. Her aura was infectious and quickly gained respect on any call just simply by walking into the scene. You see, Officer Potter never introduced herself in any other way than Kim to the families and individuals that requested 911 assistance. All the letters said the same thing, but this one was unique. The EMT recounts that in 2009, one of her colleagues was killed. She was at the scene with him as he died. I remember seeing the look on his face after he was lying there on the floor. It was a look I'd never seen before. I couldn't remember some events after this. And it so happened that Officer Potter was at the honor guard at the funeral. And quotes, Officer Potter kept checking on me as well as my other colleagues, making sure we were all taken care of. She made a huge impact on all of us during this devastating time. The EMT goes on to state that she was suffering from PTSD, which may have occurred here too, in light of her colleague's death. She goes on to say, I thought I was hiding my symptoms pretty well until one day I went on medical call in Brooklyn Center with Officer Potter. We ended up not transporting the individual in an ambulance, and we were walking out together. After the call, Officer Potter once again asked me how I was doing. I always responded, fine, thanks. While sitting inside of the back of the ambulance on the bench seat with the back doors of the ambulance open, Officer Potter jumped in the back of the ambulance and shut the doors. So just the two of us were there inside. Officer Potter put her right hand on my right shoulder and looked me straight in the eye. I will never forget what she then said. I've been noticing you have not been yourself for some time now. What can I do to help? Of course, I tried not to show her that I was hurting. Officer Potter sat down on the stretcher right in front of me and grabbed my hand. She told me it was okay to feel pain. I immediately began to tear up, and Officer Potter stayed with me and calmed me. Please keep in mind, I only knew Officer Potter professionally during my whole career. She did not have to take this time, nor did she owe me anything. It was just her personality and character. I can honestly say she genuinely cares for everyone she meets. Officer Potter helped me out of a dark place where I had no idea of the true meaning of PTSD. Without this interaction of Officer Potter, I can say I don't know how long it would have taken me to get help and realize how much a toll my PTSD from the line of duty and death had taken on me. I had new respect for Officer Potter that day. I truly learned just how much of an impact her kindness meant. Every time I would run into her on a medical call after this day, we would check in on each other and offer a smile. With her help, I was able to retire from law enforcement, being proud of the people I served. She concludes by saying, EMT does, she is an incredible officer as well as person. The world would be an amazing place if everyone would strive to be even half the person she is. Thank you for your time and consideration. So she is amenable. She's particularly amenable, given her life, and a sentence which would stay the prison sentence would be just and right here. And I only approach the durational departure issue as a secondary argument. I offer no disrespect to Mr. Wright and his family, but there is a departure ground, and I would like to articulate it to you. It's all over the letters under section 2D.203A1. If the victim is an aggressor, that is considered a mitigating fact. A single mitigating fact is sufficient under the law. That's State versus Solberg, 882 Northwest 2nd, 614, 618, Minnesota 216. There's nothing wrong with raising this as a factor. This is an adversarial system. We're duty bound to advocate for the least amount of time. And again, I offer no disrespect here, but we're lawyers for her. And if the victim was aggressive, it is a mitigating ground. I request the court to make findings for the community, particularly for the law enforcement community, that there was aggression on the part of Mr. Wright. Driving without a license in a car without insurance, perhaps not. There was marijuana in the car. Past instance of flight. He was arguably intoxicated with marijuana, which driving a car while intoxicated is a violent act. It can be. I would like the court to acknowledge that warrants of the court do matter and should be honored. This was a warrant for his arrest. I'd like the court to acknowledge that running away from the police officers, three of them, is a violent act. It's an aggressive act. And that in this case, it has a potential of harming the officers, and it did, according to the testimony. The state, on the other hand, says this, quotes, Daunte Wright was not an aggressor against defendant. Daunte Wright made no aggressive or violent movements toward defendant Potter or the other officers. Daunte Wright simply pulled away from Officer Lucky in an attempt to drive off. We beg to differ. The testimony of Officer Lucky and Sergeant Johnson is that this was a dangerous situation. Sergeant Johnson was reaching in to prevent him from driving away and could have been hurt. Each said so. This was an aggressive act. I don't know how it couldn't be an aggressive act. There's no requirement that Kim Potter be a victim of the aggression herself. The law says that she can defend other officers on the scene, and so statute 609066. So, she can do that. The whole idea of this victim of an aggressor mitigation is where, as here, there's a self-defense claim that's defeated. It's not perfect. The jury rejected it, but nonetheless, the facts show that the victim, Mr. Wright, wasn't the aggressor. And so when that happens, and it happens here, you have a durational departure ground. The state would also say, quotes, it's repeated again, their claim is that Daunte Wright was, quotes, not combative with the officer. He made no threats to the officer. He did not act aggressively towards the officer. That's at page 11. That's inconsistent with the record. We take issue with that. Her intended response here to the aggression was to use a taser. Clearly, that's what the facts show. And therefore, her conduct was rooted in an innocent mistake, believing that she was using a taser and had a gun. And that makes the case significantly less serious than the typical manslaughter case because it was rooted in a mistake, rooted in innocence at the moment in response to a violent act. That makes it different. And so you have durational departure grounds. And the state seems to agree that departure grounds do exist because they're falling away from the Blakely claim. No longer are they asking for 10 to 20 years or whatever they were asking for. And the Blakely claim was critical at trial because they got all this evidence in of Daunte Wright's scene of death on the grounds. As you recall, that, oh, it's Blakely, we got to get it in. But they've abandoned that. And I would suggest to you that the case was overcharged. You should never have charged first-degree manslaughter for a first-time a defendant. You should never ask for 86 months for someone like her. I have a couple more letters and I will have concluded my remarks here. This one is from the former chief of police of Brooklyn Center. This came in late, but I forwarded it to you. I hope you got a chance to read it. It's he recounts that in July of 2014, I responded with several officers to a report of a toddler who had been struck by a vehicle. What happened here is that the child had been run over by his father and died. Everybody at the scene was having a difficult time with the call, he says. We forget how much trauma police experience on a daily basis, frankly. I took this call very hard, says the former chief, as I had just welcomed my second child to this world a few weeks earlier. Her name was the same name as the little girl who died in the accident. My other child was a 14-month-old girl. I read this letter because the following happened. Quotes, Kim came to my office a few days after this tragedy. She closed the door, sat down, and placed her feet on my desk, something I normally assume would be followed with a resignation letter. She asked me how I was doing. She was talking to me person to person, not as a coworker or manager. In just a few minutes, she had my trust to share the challenges I was having with the accident call. I felt like a 10-ton weight was lifted from my shoulders, and it was life-changing. I was seriously considering leaving law enforcement a year early as a result of this call, and she helped me move past my doubts. Kimberly has helped many other first responders and officers, and if others benefit just by a fraction of how I did, I know it made a notable impact on their lives. In closing, I know there are hundreds of examples of Kimberly's selfless acts to help others. She didn't do it for money, as none of these examples involve pay. She didn't do it for promotion, as nothing here is a rank. She did it because she truly cares about helping others. You know, he didn't have to write that. No. I returned to family for her. You know, her son has written to you as well. Again, I wish you could have seen this in the room with the two boys. They're young men. Samuel Potter says, my mom is my rock. She is the reason I am where I am today. She's the reason I am the man I am today. Without her, I don't know where I would be. She raised my brother and me to live by the golden rule, to treat people how we want to be treated. I feel I do this to the best of my ability. And we can't ask any more of a young man than that, can we? Finally, the last excerpt I'd like to read, and then I will conclude. It comes from her mother. I think for those who have lost our mothers, this will even resonate further, because once you've lost your mother, there's an incredible vacuum in your life. You may recall that her mother came to the trial a couple times and sat in the corner and watched her daughter testify. She says, I am almost 82 years old, and I need quite a lot of help now. Kim is such a help to me. She's the one who cleans my apartment, changes my sheets, and makes sure I have what I need. She helps me go places because I can no longer drive long distances or drive easily in the dark. She helps me with my banking and my bills so I don't pay anything late. These things have gotten a lot harder for me as I've gotten older, and Kim keeps me on track. Sort of an axial line there too. Kim is my daughter, but she's also my friend. She's the youngest of our 4 children by several years. When the older ones went away to college, Kimberly was the one who left at home. She and I spent a lot of time together, and we were very close. I confide in her. She's always able to understand me and help me when I have a question or when I'm worried about something. And she goes on to say this, she's a good person, and it makes me sad that people are talking so terribly about her. They make all kinds of conclusions about her because she chose her career to be a police officer. They just assume things, and they don't even take the time to try to get to know her before they make all kinds of judgments and awful statements about her. We taught her to treat others as she would want to be treated. I feel sad that other people in our city don't do the same. Why do we just keep letting people do this? Kimberly was a good officer, but the job is a stressful one. I don't know how she did it. I wouldn't have wanted to, but we need police officers to protect us. I'm glad someone wants to do it. If we send good police officers to jail when they make mistakes, we won't have anyone who wants to be one, which is a refrain of many letters. She concludes, her mother does, I love my daughter. I'm proud of her. I think that you know in your heart that it was a horrible accident. Please be lenient and give her probation so she can come home and help me. Maybe, this is a very unique defendant here, given her age and career, and it's, I would urge the court to approach it this way. Maybe it's time we should help her too. We're helping all sorts of defendants who come through Hennepin County, and she should be helped. This is something that perhaps she's never going to get over. I don't think she's ever going to get over it, frankly, given the report that you've read. It's time to reach out to someone like her and say, okay, what can we do for you? A lower sentence would, in our thinking, the way of thinking, reflect the rules of, or the roles of mercy and forgiveness, which are both essential. What remains of her life is that she's been a good daughter and a good sister. She's a loving mother, 2 wonderful boys, young men. She's been a wonderful companion to her husband, Jeff, who completely adores her, and rightly so. She loved her community, and she absolutely loved being a police officer. And these are the relationships that mark a life and form the units of a life. And may these units of her life be the ultimate calculation for mitigation here. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then I'll allow Ms. Potter, if she wishes to address the court. Okay, so 15 minutes. Okay, Ms. Potter, would you like to address the court? Please go to the podium and you may remove your mask.
Thank you. To the family of Daunte Wright, I am so sorry that I brought the death of your father.
Okay, Ms. Potter, my court reporter can't hear you. So
Thank you. To the family of Daunte Wright, I am so sorry that I brought the death of your son, father, brother, uncle, grandson, nephew, and the rest of your family to your home. Katie, I understand a mother's love, and I am sorry I broke your heart. My heart is broken for all of you. Earlier, when you said that I didn't look at you during the trial, I don't believe I had a right to. I didn't even have a right to be in the same room with you. I am so sorry that I hurt you so badly. My heart is broken and devastated for all of you. I pray for Daunte and all of you many, many times a day. He is not more than one thought away from my heart, and I have no right for that, for him to be in my heart. I do pray that one day you can find forgiveness, only because hatred is so destructive to all of us. And that I pray peace will always be with you and your family. Again, I am so sorry. And to the community of Brooklyn Center, I do owe you an apology too. I loved working for you. And I am sorry what has happened to our community since the death of Daunte. The men and women who work for you still are good, honorable people and will work hard for you. Thank you, Your Honor.
thank you, Ms. Potter. Okay, this is one of the saddest cases I've had on my 20 years on the bench. On the one hand, a young man was killed, and on the other, a respected 26-year veteran police officer made a tragic error by pulling her handgun instead of her taser. Thank you to everyone who spoke. I have been profoundly moved by the comments of the Wright family. Daunte was very loved. His son has lost a father. And Mr. and Mrs. Wright, I cannot begin to understand the grief of losing a child. I'm so sorry for your loss. Kimberly Potter honorably served her community for 26 years as a police officer. She was a respected officer and consistently went over and above the call of duty. She's a wife, a mother, an aunt, a granddaughter, a colleague, and a friend to many. In addition to the letters that were forwarded to me by Mr. Ng, I received hundreds and hundreds of letters in her support from colleagues, family, friends, acquaintances, community leaders and members, and even strangers. I read them all. They paint a portrait of a woman who touched a lot of people in a good way. I want to talk briefly about the aggravating factors that were brought up in this case. As I mentioned before, the state initially took the position Ms. Potter should receive a sentence above the guidelines and filed a brief in support of two aggravating factors under Blakely. All parties agreed that I would determine whether aggravating factors existed to justify a harsher sentence than that set forth in the guidelines. I feel compelled to address the grounds for that request because they were made public, and I think it is important to note they were not proven in this case. The state did not meet its burden of proof on the first factor. It is based on defendant causing a greater than normal danger to the passenger in the car and two other officers when she fired. But the shot only hit Daunte Wright. The passenger and the officers were not injured by that shot. The cases cited by the state in its brief did not support its position. In fact, they illustrate why this case does not involve a greater than normal danger to others. In the Fleming case, he fired a gun 6 times in a park filled with children. In State versus Omaha, defendant fired numerous shots into 2 apartment buildings. There is no comparison here. The state also did not meet its burden of proof on the second Blakely factor. Contrary to the state's claims, Kimberly Potter did not abuse her position of authority. In fact, it is undisputed Ms. Potter or Officer Potter was in the line of duty and doing her job in attempting to lawfully arrest Daunte Wright on the warrant when she mistook her gun for her taser. What's more, she drew her taser legitimately to protect a fellow officer on the other side of the vehicle who could have been dragged and seriously injured if the car were to speed away. Officer Potter's conduct clearly was not significantly more serious than that typically involved in the commission of the crime in question, justifying an upward departure. Turning to defendant's request for a dispositional departure, there is no question that Ms. Potter is extremely remorseful. She showed that today. She showed that when it happened. It is also beyond dispute that she is particularly amenable to probation. But the court retains the discretion to make departure decisions independently. The court is not required to depart even where mitigating factors are present, and that's set forth in State versus Birch, 689 Northwest 2nd, 276, affirmed by the Supreme Court, 707 Northwest 2nd, 660. This has been an extremely difficult decision. In making my decision, I look to the purposes of incarceration. There are four: retribution, incapacitation, deterrence, and rehabilitation. Three of the four would not be served in this case. Incapacitation refers to the physical removal of a convicted person to prevent them from committing future crimes. That is not an issue in this case. Kimberly Potter does not present a danger of future crimes, obviously. Deterrence refers to the prevention of future crime and the idea that those who have committed crimes will be discouraged from reoffending after experiencing punishment. That purpose would not be served here. Rehabilitation is also not a purpose that would justify incarceration in this case. Ms. Potter does not require rehabilitation to become a law-abiding citizen. Retribution, or serving time as a way for a convicted person to pay for the harm inflicted on a victim, is the sole purpose that applies in this case. And in this case, a young man was killed because Officer Potter was reckless. There rightfully should be some accountability. Sentencing guidelines are just that. They are guidelines that inform a judge regarding sentencing for various crimes. They are not set in stone. The court has the discretion to depart from guidelines depending on the particular facts of a case. A downward durational departure is justified if a crime is less onerous than typical. Put another way, if the conduct is significantly less serious than that typically involved in the commission of the crime, sentencing below the guidelines is justified. I find the facts and circumstances here justify a downward departure from the guidelines. First, Officer Potter's conduct was significantly less serious than your typical manslaughter case. The misdemeanor predicate for the manslaughter count was reckless handling or use of a firearm. Here, everybody agrees, and the evidence is undisputed, that Officer Potter never intended to use her firearm. She mistakenly drew her firearm at all times, intending to use her taser. There were police officers and experts who testified that the use of her taser was reasonable and appropriate under the circumstances presented for officer safety reasons. The fact she never intended to draw her firearm makes this case less serious than other cases. Second, the scene was chaotic, tense, and rapidly evolving. Officer Potter was required to make a split-second judgment. That constitutes a mitigating circumstance. Finally, unlike other manslaughter 1 cases, Officer Potter's actions were not driven by personal animosity toward Daunte Wright. Instead, she was acting in the line of duty in effectuating a lawful arrest. This case is highly unusual. The other officer cases tried in this court are distinguishable. This is not a cop found guilty of murder for using his need to pin down a person for 9.5 minutes as he gasped for air. This is not a cop found guilty of manslaughter for intentionally drawing his firearm and shooting across his partner and killing an unarmed woman who approached his squad. This is a cop who made a tragic mistake. She drew her firearm thinking it was a taser and ended up killing a young man. Ms. Potter, will you please rise? Given all these considerations and having carefully considered the comments of the family and of both Daunte Wright and the comments of Kimberly Potter, as well as the arguments of counsel, it is the sentence and judgment of this court that you shall be committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 24 months. You shall serve 2/3 of that time, or 16 months in prison, and 1/3 on supervised release, assuming no disciplinary offenses or conditional release violations. You have credit for 58 days already served. Restitution will be reserved. There'll be a fine of $1,000 and a surcharge of $78 to be taken out of prison wages or due within 180 days. You must provide a DNA sample. You may not use or possess any firearms, ammunition, or explosives. You have the right to appeal the conviction and sentence. If you are unable to pay the cost of an appeal, you may apply for leave to appeal at state expense by contacting the state public defender. You may be seated, Ms. Potter. I'd like to make a few parting comments. I recognize there will be those who disagree with the sentence, that I granted a significant downward departure does not in any way diminish Daunte Wright's life. His life mattered. And to those who disagree and feel a longer prison sentence is appropriate, as difficult as it may be, please try to empathize with Ms. Potter's situation. As President Barack Obama once said, learning to stand in somebody else's shoes, to see through their eyes, that's how peace begins. And it's up to you to make that happen. Empathy is a quality of character that can change the world. Officer Kimberly Potter was trying to do the right thing. Of all the jobs in public service, police officers have the most difficult one. They must make snap decisions under tense, evolving, and ever-changing circumstances. They risk their lives every single day in public service. Officer Potter made a mistake that ended tragically. she never intended to hurt anyone. Her conduct cries out for a sentence significantly below the guidelines. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Callie.
$16 months. 16 months, everybody. 1 year. Johannes Mesley got the same conviction. Oscar Grant, Fruitville BART Station. Look it up. The movie Fruitville Station was directed by Michael Kugler, and it starred, it was the first tandem between Michael Kugler and I forget his name all the time when I bring this up. He played in Black Panther. But this was the first time that they worked together. Michael Kugler is from the Bay Area. He was actually in school when Oscar Grant was murdered. He was going to school in the Bay Area to be a film director. He got the opportunity to direct this movie because in the Bay Area, there's certain opportunities that you get. If you're a Black man, you're doing the right thing, and you can speak to certain people. And in San Francisco, people are connected to certain people. So he was able to speak to certain people and say, you know what, I want to make this movie. And those individuals helped Michael Kugler create the movie Fruitville Station about Oscar Grant. And that's what we saw the young brother who played in the Black Panther. Johannes Mesley received 2 years. Johannes Mesley said he accidentally pulled the taser and killed Oscar Grant. Oscar Grant was also a 20-year-old young Black man and a father. Johannes Mesley served less than a year. Kimberly Potter. Did you see the judge crying? Who cried? Who's going to cry over Daunte? Nobody cried over Daunte, but the judge cried over Kimberly that she had to put her in jail for 16 months. How much of that time you think Kimberly is going to do? 16 months in jail, 20 years old. He's not even 21. He's not even a full adult. He had a 1-year-old son. His son is alive longer than she got time. 16 months, she barely gonna serve a year for murdering this person. And everything, the judge went totally against the jury's decision. The jury disagreed. The jury found her guilty on both man 1 and man 2. The jury disagreed with the judge's assessment. But what happened, this is why it was so important for people to listen to the video I did on the bifurcation trial, because the judge was allowed to throw out the jury's opinion. If anybody listening is saying, how could the judge make a whole new decision? It's because of something called a bifurcated trial, where both parties agreed that the judge could go in and give a more harsher sentence. But part of that is that if the judge said she didn't want a harsher sentence, the judge could go down. She could go up and give her 15 years, or she can go down and give her 1 year. And what she did is she went down and gave her 1 year, and she reformulated the opinion of the court. The jury said that she acted recklessly, that she put other lives in danger besides Daunte Wright. There was a female passenger in the car when she shot and killed Daunte Wright. The projectile that exited out of the gun scarred and injured her partner. When the judge said nobody else was injured, that was a lie. That was a lie. Lucky was injured by the projectile when it exploded from the cartridge of the gun. So somebody else was injured. A police officer was injured. Lucky was hit by the bullet. Lucky was hit by the bullet that killed Daunte Wright. His female passenger could have been murdered, and the officer on the other side of the vehicle could have been murdered. After Daunte Wright was shot and murdered, because of the lack of proper procedure, Daunte Wright crashed into an elderly couple and someone else was murdered. Someone else died that day that doesn't get talked about. Daunte Wright was not the only death. Because she acted so recklessly, somebody else died. So Kimberly Potter got a year, and the judge reformulated the opinion. After she murdered Daunte Wright careened down the street and crashed into an elderly couple where an elderly man died. That's 2 cars, 4 people. 2 cars, 4 people. When he crashed the car, his female passenger was still in the car. She has trauma. She cannot hear out of her left ear. She got damages. The city is going to have to pay for all of that. Don't forget, this just doesn't go away. No, that girl has a lawsuit against Kimberly Potter and the city. The old couple has a lawsuit against Kimberly Potter and the city. It doesn't just go away. That little girl injury doesn't just go away. The year is not warranted. The year is not validated. 1 year. Y'all need to go look at Fruitville Station. Fruitville Station, Oscar Grant. The story is so traumatic. It's hard for me to even watch, bro. Because I've been in that bar station going to work at Kaiser so many times, man, commuting, and maybe some days I commute 4 hours. Some days I commute 4 hours. I've worked an 8-hour day, sometimes a 10-hour day. My day is a 16-hour day. My commute takes me 2 hours. I'm on the BART for an hour. I got to drive for an hour because I'm still driving. It's a commute. You got to park your car at the BART station. You got to ride to the BART. I've been at that BART, Fruitville BART station. I grew up going to that BART station. So it's hard for Bay Area Black males to go back to that BART station and understand that Oscar Grant was murdered on this platform for being a young Black man. And the person who murdered him was not even born in America and got less than a year. Kimberly Potter got all his sympathy, but Daunte Wright is never coming back. Daunte Wright's son is not even a year old. Daunte Wright's son won't even remember his father. Is that worth anything? I ask you, is that worth anything beyond the gunshot, beyond the female passenger, beyond the old couple? Is Daunte Wright's child have any? Pastor was talking about social credit. What is the social credit of the Black boy? What is the social value of the Black male child? Daunte Wright's son will never get, see, Kimberly Potter got to raise her kids. So she didn't hesitate when she killed Daunte Wright. That's the problem here. She didn't hesitate when she killed Daunte Wright. And Daunte Wright's son will never know his father because you don't remember at 1 year old, he's not going to remember his father. He might remember the pictures that they tell him, but he won't have no memory of his father. And for that, she should have to have some more retribution beyond 1 year. My name is Perfect Timing Podcast. This is Perfect Timing Podcast Live. This is my backup channel. Thank you, everybody who came through. Thank you, Pastor $40. This is a wrap-up of a case that we did on my Perfect Timing Podcast channel. You can find a playlist where we extensively went in depth with this entire case. So I had to bring this to my audience. I had to bring a closure because, we got the guilty verdict. We watched the case from the inception, from the jury selection, through the battle, through the closing. And then when we got the verdict, I told everybody, be patient. Don't get too happy. Because I educated everybody on the bifurcated trial and how it would empower the judge. So now we have the closure to this event. We got the McMichaels, their federal case just started on the racial hate crime against Ahmaud Arbery. So we're going to bring you that. And we got a couple other court cases we're going to work on bringing you. But this is a closure to the killer cop, Kimberly Potter. She got 16 months for killing Daunte Wright, a 20-year-old Black man. It started from a traffic stop. He didn't do nothing wrong. He wasn't violent. He had never hurt anyone in his life. They tried to paint him out to be a violent person, but they couldn't because he didn't have any priors. He didn't have an arrest record. When he was murdered, you know what he was doing? He was on the phone with his mother because he was scared. Because he was a boy. He wasn't a criminal. He was a Black man. And like Martin Luther King said on Black History Month, there's a stigma against the Black male, right? We're seen as violent. I call it King Kong syndrome. But there was no rap sheet. If that was me at 20 years old, my rap sheet was a mile long. They could have been reading all the shit I did for 2 days. They couldn't do that with Daunte because he hadn't been arrested. He hadn't done the things. I got a charge for murder at 12 years old. They couldn't bring up none of that shit. I got a rap sheet starting at 12 years old. At 20 years old, my rap sheet was a mile long. They couldn't do that with Daunte. They tried, but they couldn't do that with Daunte. He wasn't a drug dealer like me. He wasn't a gangbanger like me. He was on the phone with his mother. He was terrified for his life because he knew the people who were supposed to protect him killed people that look like him. So he called his mom. White people, when they get pulled over, they don't get scared and call their mom. They're not fearing for their life. Daunte Wright called his mother because he knows that police kill black men. He wasn't a criminal. He didn't have a rap sheet. He didn't have a strike. He wasn't a convicted felon. None of the things that I am. Daunte Wright was none of those things, but they still murdered him. They still treated him like a dog and killed him in the street, let him bleed out in the grass. And she's justified for being terrified of a 20-year-old boy when you got a son older than Daunte Wright. She's not justified. The reason she got found guilty because the expert said she shouldn't have never pulled the taser. Daunte Wright would be here. The judge was wrong. The judge should be fired. The judge got it wrong. The jury got it right. The expert said she was unjust in even pulling the taser. This wasn't an event to pull out any guns. There were 3 police officers there, 2 men. None of the men ever reached for their duty belt. 2 men. One of the men were her superior officer. Neither one of the men reached for a weapon. Neither one of the men panicked. Neither one of the men were worried because Daunte Wright was not violent. Daunte Wright was a child. Daunte Wright was complicit. There was nothing to be afraid of. The car was not scary. They were not afraid of the car. If they were afraid of the car, why were both officers inside of the car? If they were afraid that Daunte Wright was going to drive off in the car, why were they both inside of the car? These are 2 men. One of the men was an Iraqi war vet. The other man was a major of 30 years on the force. Why were they inside the vehicle? The vehicle was not a threat. That's why. And the jury said and agreed with the expert that said she did not even deserve to pull out a taser because no one else did. Not because of my opinion, not because I don't like police officers. I'm saying, and the expert said, and the jury said, she shouldn't have pulled out a taser because there were 3 police officers there, and 2 of them was more senior in the field than her, and no one else pulled out a taser but Kim. That's why she got found guilty. No one reached for a gun but Kim. And Kim was not even involved. Kim was on the outside of the car. Kim was not involved with the initial arrest. Why would she be afraid? What did she have to fear? She couldn't fear the life of her officers because they chose to go into the car, which is why she was found guilty, everybody. What's important here is to understand that the judge legally was allowed to throw out the jury's conviction. And that should upset you as a black man, as an American. You should understand what happened in this case and how and why the judge was able to sentence down. We've never been sentenced down. Black men get sentenced up. Plied has a song that says they give a brother 100 years. They give black men football numbers. They gave a black man 17 years to life for standing next to somebody smoking a joint. He wasn't smoking a joint. He was standing next to somebody smoking a joint, and they gave him 17 years to life. This is how they sentence black men for non-violent crimes. For just being next to someone, you go to jail for the rest of your life. In black neighborhoods, we teach kids not to get in the car because white judges send you to jail for the rest of your life. Even if you didn't know, they say ignorance is not an excuse for the law. If you say, Judge, I'm going to college, I didn't know he had a gun, they send you to jail. You know why? Because they're scared. You get more time than Kimberly got for murdering a black man. This is why there are riots in the streets. And when she says Daunte Wright's life has value, I ask you, Judge, Does Daunte Wright's son life have value? Does my son life have value? Because Daunte Wright's 1-year-old son will never get to see his father. What value do you place on that, Judge? Where are your tears? Where are your tears for that 1-year-old? We watched this case. It's been 2 years, you guys. It's been 2 years. It's been 2 years. And she got 1 year. Black men, we need to do a self-reflection. Black men, it's no one else's fault. Our value, our social credit, how this case was decided and judged. Black men, we need to do the heavy lifting, because no one will give us value until we value ourselves. My name is Perfect Timing. This is Perfect Timing Podcast Live. Thank y'all for tuning in. I love you all. Salute. And let's say a prayer for Daunte Wright's soul, Daunte Wright's family, and Daunte Wright's son. GOD, thank you for the opportunity to come before you. I pray a covering over Daunte Wright's soul. I know he's sitting next to you in the bosom of your beautiful blessings in heaven. I pray a covering over his entire family, his mother, his father, his son, his siblings. I pray that you enrapture their souls and touch their bodies and hearts and minds and give them comfort and a good night's sleep. I know it's going to be so difficult for them to get any sleep and any rest. I pray a covering of peace. I pray a blessing of peace and abundance upon the Wright family. Father God, I ask all these blessings in your name. Thank you for the opportunity once again to come before you and edify your name in front of your audience. Thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for your many blessings. Amen. Hey, salute, family.